vault so you don't forget for later. I'm going to introduce Mark Traphagen now. Mark Traphagen is a Senior Director of Online Marketing for Stone Temple Consulting. He is a recognized authority on social media, Google Plus in particular. A lot of you guys know him from there. Content marketing and personal branding. Mark writes for industry-leading publications such as Moz, Search Engine Land, LinkedIn, as well as a monthly social media marketing column for Marketing Land. Mark will be a contributing author to the forthcoming 3rd edition of The Art of SEO. Congratulations, that's awesome. And he has spoken at major conferences including MozCon, PubCon, SMX, and many others. So if you guys give a warm welcome to Mark Traphagen.
So I want to talk about, speaking of flow, social media, what I'm calling social media content flow. Where does the content come from that is going to really be effective on social media? So many brands that I look at really end up failing in social media. They may not even realize they're failing, saying we're doing social media, but that's the problem. They're doing social media. And that's what I want to talk about today is that if you're starting from social media just as a thing that we do, you're setting yourself up from failure. So I want to start off with an illustration here of stock image models of Portland Incorporated. This is where all the stock image models come from. They have to come from somewhere, right? We finally found out this is a company that produces them, and this is their annual marketing meeting. So here they're gathering. And their CMO asked them, so what marketing trend should we pursue next? It is a requirement to work at SIMP that you be actually a stock image model. So the CMO says, what marketing trend should we pursue next, right? That's often the question where we start as marketers. And somebody comes up, somebody finally speaks up and says, billboards are hot. Okay. Billboards, everybody says, okay, because finally somebody said something in the meeting. So yeah, billboards, they're hot. We've been hearing about those, reading about those on LinkedIn, so what should we do? Okay, so the CMO says, all right, you sold me. But which billboard should we be on? Well, there's, Face Billboard has the most users. There's Twitboard, it's good for posting links. Linked board is obvious if we're B2B. So, okay, great. Now, who wants to write up the reasons why we should be on each of those billboards? Yeah, this is the problem, is that too many of us have the cart before the horse. We run out, we think, social media, it's become a thing in the last few years. Like, we're supposed to do social media, right? So we need a social media manager, and we need to get profiles set up on the social media networks, and then we do social media. But that's where our problem comes from. So what I want to do today is kind of back us up and to look at this as a kind of flow, like a river that has a source, it comes from somewhere, it flows out, and then eventually that river, as it gets down to the mainlands and the plains, breaks up into tributaries that feed lots and lots of land. So I want you to think about your social media channels as these tributaries, but they have a source, and we need to back up to the source and then follow it forward so that we have something meaningful and nourishing to our communities, as Joanna pointed out, when it gets down to the level of the tributaries. So we're going to start back up at the source as brand identity, and this very much pegs into what Joanna was talking about, knowing who you are as a brand and what that expresses, what that means, what that communicates. Out of that, turning your attention to the buyers, the community that's out there. Who are the people that need what you have, and who are they? What do they like? What do they want? What are their hopes and dreams? That leads to your targeted content that now is not just content being produced for the sake of doing content marketing, but content that is coming out of your story and your potential customers' stories, and that merges those stories together into a common story. And then you're ready to go out into the social media marketing world. You've got a foundation, you've got something to share, something to contribute, something to say that's going to be meaningful to the right people at the right time. So that's the path we're gonna walk on here, but first let's back up a little bit. All right, oh, it is working up there, great, okay. We're gonna back up to the beginning and start with brand identity. And I can cruise to this one pretty quickly because, again, Joanna did such a good job of talking about this. But I'm gonna break it up into three sections. That this is your homework. If you haven't done this, don't do another tweet, don't post another post on Facebook, don't pin anything on Pinterest until you and your company, and this really needs to be a whole company exercise. Another thing I just loved from Joanna's presentation is how Porch involves the entire company. Everybody's a part of forming this. It's not just Joanna at the top saying like, this is our identity. Everybody now assume this identity. But it comes from the heart, it comes from within, it comes from a true expression of who you are. So your brand values, what do you stand for? Why do you exist? You know, why should your company, your brand even be there? You need to know that. You need to be able to express that. Like, this is what we want to do. You saw that again from Porch and some of the other companies that Joanna shared with you. Out of that comes your brand UVP, or unique value proposition. You need to be able to state and put it in a sentence and put it out there and say, like, this is why our company exists. This is what we exist to do. This is how we change the world. This is the way that our customers' lives are different because we exist, and our customers' lives wouldn't have this, whatever it is, if we weren't there. You need to be able to know that, you need to state it, and everybody in your company needs to know what that is and needs to love it and have it as their heartbeat. And that develops into a brand story, an actual story that you can tell. It's kind of a legend of where you came from, why you came into existence, the struggles that you went through, the changes that you went through. You need to know that internally. You need to be able to express it internally or externally, because it's that story that you're going to hopefully merge with the stories of prospects out there, people who might become your customers. Where they're on a journey, you're on a journey, and if you can bring those journeys together, then you come to something meaningful, something that's going to end up in being business for your company. So overall, the idea here is to be able to say why. You've got to start from why. You've got to know the why, and again, don't do another tweet, don't do another Facebook post until you know this and can express it and do it in your sleep. Now that comes into to buyer personas, turning to the customer, the potential customer. Who are they? Who are we even trying to talk to? Who are we trying to get into our community? What are they like? This is an incredibly complex topic that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on because there's good materials out there. I'm going to recommend an excellent one in just a moment. But the idea here is that you don't have just one target. Inevitably, you have many targets. You've got to know who those targets are, what distinguishes each target, so that you can be aiming your content and ultimately your social media expression toward those things. I'm going to recommend here a tremendous resource. About a year ago, Michael King wrote an epic post for Moz on buyer personas. It's probably something a lot of you have heard about, maybe you've dabbled a little into it. Michael covered it, really he wrote an ebook as a blog post. Covers the topic very thoroughly. You can find it at that short link there, stonet.co/persona Bible, and just will take you through everything you need to know about how do you figure out who your potential buyers are, the people who might need your products, what they're like, what their hopes and dreams and aspirations are, what their pain points are that your product or service might be able to help solve and intersect with. So out of that, knowing who you are, knowing your brand identity, knowing who your buyers are and what they're like, now you're ready to start producing targeted content. Content that flows out of your story, out of your identity, toward the streams, toward those tributaries of the people who are actually going to need your product or service. So this targeted content is really the foundation of what you're doing. It's why I'm talking about this now. You know, this is not a content marketing session, but I never talk these days about social media marketing without talking about content marketing. You've got to have some there. There has to be something there that you take out into the world and share and say, this is who we are, this is what we've got, this is what we're offering to you. We're not offering you platitudes, we're not offering you sales slogans. We've got something of substance, and that's your content that demonstrates why you ought to even pay any attention to us. So I'm going to walk you through here a process, and I'll be tweeting out after we're done with the session here the slide share of this deck. So if you want to get all this and follow it along later, you can get it from that. But this is the actual process. We call it content marketing design for success that we walk our clients through at Stone Temple and that we do ourselves for our own company, our own marketing. So this is kind of a step-by-step process where we turn all that, the aspirational stuff that Joanna talked about, the inspirational, the emotional connections of brand and community, the identities of our buyers, the personas. We begin to turn that into a process to turn out the right content that then our social media puts in front of the right eyeballs at the right time. So let me just walk you through that quickly. The first step is identifying the personas, as I said. And that's a whole process unto itself. And that's continually developing. You're always going to get feedback on that and figure out better and better who are the people that are really interested in our product and what are they like? What do they do for a living? What are their income levels? What are their hopes and dreams? What are they after in life? We're going to use an example here of a client of ours who's in the cloud password storage vertical. They help regular people and businesses to store their passwords safely and securely. So as we're looking at content for them that they're going to take out into their social media, the first thing that we do is we establish themes out of that. So we look at a particular persona. We do this for each of the personas. This one is the casual web surfer. So this is somebody who uses the web for entertainment and enlightenment. They're not using it particularly for business purposes. They're not a hardcore user, but they're a regular user. But they have certain concerns. What are those concerns? We identified them as security, convenience, the service has to be easy to use, and intelligence. The service should kind of work on its own without me having to do a lot of technical adjustments to it. So we take those themes, and then each of those themes, I'll take security as the example here, now we develop into keywords. We start looking for keywords. What are the kinds of things that this casual web surfer who's concerned about security, she's read articles online about how easily passwords are stolen, how easily your accounts are hacked, she's worried about her bank account. What are the things? So we came up with keywords like hacker threats, password vulnerability, identity theft. Now we take each of those and we develop those keywords into topics, numerous topics that comes out of that keyword. So for identity theft here, a topic might be the true cost of identity theft. We call it title-ish. These are not necessarily actual video or article titles, but they're title-ish. They're ideas that will lead eventually to content. Now we go out and we look for outreach targets. Now this step is only applicable if you're going to be publishing the content outside of your own site. So if you're going to be doing guest posting, that kind of thing, or putting content out there, doing content partnerships, we begin to look at this. And what I want you to keep in mind here is everything that we're doing flows out of what came before. You've got to be careful not to forget the steps before, because now even as we're looking for our outreach targets, we have to be thinking not just, oh, this would be a good place because it's relevant to the topic, but is this a place where this persona, this buyer, potential buyer, would even go? Is it a place that they frequent? Is it a place that they trust? Is it a place they understand? So all of that has to go into the selection of this. Same thing with influencers. We're going to identify influencers who are going to help us spread the content and get it known. Not only are they influential in the topic, but again, do they have an audience for this particular persona? So we keep all those things in mind as we go through. And then finally identifying SMEs, subject matter experts. These are the people who will actually produce the content. And we place a really strong emphasis on having actual identifiable people. We don't always get this with our clients. They don't always want to do it. But wherever possible, we say what you need to be doing, the best situation is if you can develop people from within your own organization. I call them PBRs. It's not hipster beer, but personal brand representatives. And something that I'm preaching everywhere I go now is the power of this. Is if you can develop from in-house, as Joanna talked about this, getting her employees and nurturing and encouraging and giving resources to, even budgets to employees who have the desire, the ability, and the boldness to go out and speak on behalf of your brand, that can be very powerful. Sometimes you can't get that. Sometimes you have to go out and find people who are recognized experts or have an audience out there who are going to produce the content for you. But again, you ask that in light of everything that we said before. Do they have an audience with this particular persona? Can they speak the language that will communicate, that will make the connections there? Now we're ready to get social. Okay, here I am in a social media session. I'm many, many minutes into my talk, and I'm just now talking about social media. And I want to stop and make a point of that, is that if you take away nothing else from my talk here today, it's that I want to impress upon you that you're never going to do social media effectively until you've done all this homework first. You need to go back and do it and think through these things so that your social media is coming from somewhere, like a stream, and it's flowing to somewhere, and you know what those are, and you know what's happening in those streams. So now we're ready to get our content out through the social channels. So what we do then is we now are ready to look at what channels do we want to go into for each persona, and the topics and the themes, the keywords, the content that we've developed. Where's that going to be most effective? Where can we build community that will make the connections there? Where are the influencers? Those are all the questions. Now we're being strategic in what even social networks we're using, connecting with. I want to end today. Again, I'm trying to keep this talk highly focused. There's so many other things. There's so many things I'm leaving out of the process. But I thought I want to give you one way now that we've gotten to the social media stage. Okay, a lot of people think, okay, we've got targeted content. It's coming out of our brand story. It speaks to our buyer personas stories. We can make that emotional connection. We can make the intellectual connection. We've got all that in place. Now all we have to do, right, is tweet it out. Send the link, little title, bing, it's gone, bam, I'm done. I've done my social media. Well, no. We found that now to stand out, and again, I'm just going back to Joanna's talk, saying like, your competitors are doing that. If you're doing what your competitors are doing, you're already losing. You've got to find ways to stand out, ways to be different. This is one way that we do this, again, in-house for our content with Stone Temple Consulting and our own marketing. We also teach our clients to do this. It's something I call content refraction. Refraction is the process where, white light comes into a prism and it comes out as many different colors. So it's taking your content and creatively breaking it up in ways that you can share it again and again and reach different little parts of your audience in different ways at the moment that it will be effective and not bore them or not spam them by sharing the same thing over and over. So here's how we do content refraction. For every major content piece that we do, once it's produced, once it's published, we look at it and we say, what are the constituent parts of this? What's the mini content within this? Now, I'm kind of cheating here by using a post that's very easy to do. It's a typical kind of list post, 12 warning signs of a bad SEO form. Our CEO, Eric Enger, wrote this for Forbes, and that's how you break that one up, how you refract that is obvious. There's 12 signs. So now you've got 12 mini pieces of content. But I find that most anchor pieces of content that have some substance to them, that are a bit longer than just a tweet, you're going to have, if you look at it enough, you'll find many bits of content within it, many stories within the big story that you can turn into their own pieces of content. So we take the anchor piece here, and then we break it up into, okay, waiting for that to, there it goes, okay, into its parts here, and we take it, in this one it's easy, like each of the warning signs of a bad SEO firm becomes a piece of mini content that we can share out in the social media. And this is just showing like how they look, and we line them up in Hootsuite. We schedule them out in advance. But here's in detail. This happens to be a Google Plus post. You can do it different ways in different networks. You can do it similarly, obviously, in Facebook or other posts where you can do more detail. Some social networks, you're not going to be able to put as much detail. For obviously a tweet, all you're going to be doing is the headline. But now, instead of just sending out a link on the social networks where we can provide more detail to the main piece of content, we do that and we produce these 12 more pieces of content that we can share in rotation. So here's number 5, and we give it a unique title. So it becomes a piece, it's number 5, sign of a bad SEO firm. The firm has too many clients to handle. Then we have a piece of unique content from that. In this case, it's just a paragraph, but it's something bite-sized that the reader can get. They get value out of it. We don't tease them with this. We actually give them something of substance in this piece of content that they can be satisfied with, that they can get, Stone Temple Consulting has something interesting to say here, something that helps me. But then we give them a link to the full content. We say, but as they do on late night TV, but wait, there's more. If this made you hungry, if you like this tip or you like this little tidbit that you got, you can get more. Here's a link to the full post. And then, of course, a unique image for that post. So each, we don't just have one hero image for the whole article, but we end up, in this case, with 12 unique images that we use to share out. So content refraction is just one way among many. There's repurposing of content, which a lot of you are probably familiar with, where you turn a blog post into a slide share and into a video and into an infographic. But all these ways are just techniques you can use once you've got that well-targeted content to put it out and keep repurposing it and repackaging it in ways that some of this is going to hit somebody where it lives. So we found, like, with this particular piece of content and the response that we've gotten to it from social media has been sometimes people who just see the original article, 12 Signs of a Bad SEO Firm, they'll gloss over it, they'll go by it. And maybe even one or two of the other tips. So suddenly, maybe number 5, they realize this is a wake-up call, like, wait a minute, maybe the problem with my SEO firm is just, they're too busy. They've got, like, their consultants are doing too much work. I can't get a hold of them. They never seem to be able to give me things on time. Maybe there's a problem there. So by doing this content refraction, you increase the opportunities that you're going to connect with the pain point of the people who are out there at the right moment, at the right time, with that piece of content. So let's review what we've gone through here now, the whole process that we want to think through. We start the source, brand identity. Before you know anything else, you've got to know who you are, what you stand for, what uniquely you bring to the marketplace. Then thinking about the customer, the buyer. Who are they? What are they like? What are their hopes and dreams and needs? How do we connect to that? How do we connect our story to their story? Out of that comes the targeted content that's meant to accomplish that, that tells the story in a way that it links up to the buyer's story and has meaning for them, builds your authority, your reputation in the marketplace to the right people at the right time. And then you do that in the right places on social media. Use techniques like repurposing and content refraction to provide every possible opportunity for people to link up with that content and realize that you've got something, you're bringing something special to the marketplace that perhaps nobody else is. Well, thank you very much. Look forward to your questions in the next little section.
Looking for someone with a microphone? No? Do I? Microphone might have to yell out. All right. Anybody have any questions? Raise your hands. Yes.
I would love to hear John talk a little bit about how you, Troy, you talk a lot about how you activate your employees in social and how you give them permission. From a brand's perspective, I know a lot of people get a little nervous about that because when you are doing that, you kind of give permission to, move about the country, if you will. So how do you activate your employees while safely protecting your brand and making sure that people are, acting appropriately?
That you don't spend your whole year then on online reputation management? Yeah. So, great question. And
Topic to talk about next year.
I love that. I hope Christy also talks about that in her next. I did not see that question, but Christy has a lot of experience there. But for us at Porch, it has actually been a really intense learning curve for me because this is the first, this is the largest company I've been at. So 8 months ago, we were at 130. We're at 420 now. And the majority of that is primarily sales and customer-facing teams. And it's all, 22 to 35-year-olds for the most part, learning their way in a tech culture and excited and loving our brand. So some things that we've done, one, we have done a lot of training. So we have baked it into the onboarding process. We invested in an employee handbook early. Out of, crisis management need too, right? It was like, well, that should be in an employee handbook. We should have an employee handbook. So these are things, so those things matter. I think there's also, we have this one pager that kind of gives them sort of our brand brief, who we are. Like we use the word approachable and kind. We also use unbiased. Like we talk a lot at our culture about not actually making statements about our competitors. I want to be an unbiased participant in the ecosystem. So they know that it's not okay to be like, we don't like X company, or they're not doing it well. And if we see that, we lock down on it fast. So there's a lot of growth and learning there. I think the one thing that I know has been valuable for us is understanding we're going to learn it along the way. So we actually had a forum conversation happening where like a professional was kind of like not happy with one of our practices, and one of our sales guys like jumped in because he was like defending Porch to, with his heart, and it was like, turned into this whole thing. And so it was like, let's talk about it at the all company meeting, and we actually prioritized that conversation over looking at our financials or talking about upcoming launches or products, because we were like, it's great that you have this pride. There's a better vehicle and way in which to do it, and like let's all like get on the same page that we're here to serve the customer and not to tear any competitors down or things like that. So it's a work in progress, but training, onboarding, we push out a summary every week of the community state to the company. It's the only all company brief that goes out, and it's like, here are the good things that are happening, here are the challenges we know that are happening, and we're on it. If you have ideas on how we could do it better, let us know. So it's very in motion and fluid. I'm sure there's probably a better documented process out there. I'm sure that maybe in a year I'll be able to take all these learnings and put it into one, but for us it's very much in the day and just trying to do it better every day. So, yeah.
I'd love to hear more from you about the tactics of the social partnership.
Ooh, I want to write a whole book on that. So I just moved. I hired my first social media manager, social marketing manager, and I just moved her to full-time social partnerships because I'm bullish on that as a unique advantage for us. So for us, partnership can come in a number of flavors. It can be campaign-based, which is kind of what we hope to have everything turn into, which is a collaboration normally, possibly an exchange of money, but sometimes organically, where you're doing like content swap, audience visibility, targeting across each other, email communication to each other's audiences, and around a certain theme. We have topic themes for the year, like my PR team, like we know 4 words that we want to hit for this year, and so I'm always trying to align our social campaigns to those in some capacity. That's like the biggest flavor. We also just do social partnerships where we do supportive partnerships is what we call them, where once a week our social marketing managers exchange content, exchange ideas, and exchange concerns to each other, and then they can support each other through their content or through management. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, hey, you know, we're really kind of dying over here because, you know, this forum post has gotten out of control, or we don't know anyone at this company. Do you know anyone? And so it's more of just a support partnership. And then we have this other concept of paid partnership, like a true paid BD partnership, where it's a phase that we go through when we start to kick off BD partnerships where we validate each other's audience exchanges. So there's kind of 3 flavors that happen now. I think we've run about 8 true social partnerships. We have a very strong social partnership with Lowe's, which has been the most exciting. And so we're still figuring it all out, but you know, we do look at it. I mean, there's a press kit, there's an entire partnership kit that we send out that has different flavors, and then we treat it just like that. And I very much imagine I'll have an account manager model to these social partnerships, and they will just be responsible for working with the social marketing managers of these companies. I don't know if you guys have any.
This is something that we're just beginning to explore. So you know, I'm taking mental notes as you're talking here, learning a lot from you. But we're trying to, we find our clients being skittish and reluctant about that. So we're trying to provide examples for them, models of where, you know, where it works, where it's effective, and we're starting to get some of those, which is exciting and encouraging. Yeah,
Another thing that we did that has been interesting is with 2 brands that are in the DIY space. They have huge followings, and we're not sure if we want to be in the DIY space. We're not sure if we can serve it well. We're still trying to figure out if it will be a primary tenet of Porch's offering. But when we look at it, we're actually just doing Facebook insight swaps right now, where they take, you know, obviously their emails and they're doing insights and we're doing ours, and we're doing, I would call it a partnership data swap, like on the phone talking through it, like what is a DIYer, what brands do they love, what are they talking about, where do they live, what are their demographics, what are their psychographics, and then for us, we have a bit more of a high-end clientele, and we're swapping to see if there is overlap, but more importantly, if there isn't, how can we help that steer our different roadmaps? Because we won't actually cannibalize each other in market. So I think I'm like very jazzed about this year, because I think it's gonna be fun to like explore, but I do think it's gonna become more and more you know, a prevalent part of social strategies. So we did a lot of this at Moz, and I think, you know, hopefully, I mean, some of you I can see are wearing gear, right? So you're actually, and sticker, you, sir, you are a Mozer.
Mr. Moz.
You are Mr. Moz. So a couple of things. One, this is definitely a conversation that your COO and your CEO have to sign off on, because this will be a budget ask. It is almost impossible to do operational moments of delight, if not. So a couple things that you can tactically move toward. One is setting up a swag infrastructure, like using Codis or a different similar offering where you can drop ship or somehow make your swag delivery and sending more efficient. It's the number one thing we did with our Moz Happy Packages, where at any point, anyone at the company could send an email to someone on the Happy team and say, this person in the Moz community needs flowers. She's going through a rough time. No questions asked. We have an operational plan in place in which that gets sent, a handwritten note that can be filled out and sent and gets aggregated and sent out. So it's like combining, actual infrastructure with personal moments. The other thing to do is actually start the discussion now of hiring a Happy team lead or a delight lead. We have both a delight team and a happy team. The happy team is focused on, and the happy team, I know, it sounds ridiculous. Let's all just admit it sounds ridiculous.
They're just drunk all the time.
They're just drunk. They just drink now. Actually, no. And I recognize that we don't all have the budgets for those sorts of things, so find someone on your team right now that is always so the happy team is internal and the delight team is external. Someone at your company constantly says, I don't know, is that right for the customer? Like, I think we should do this, and take them and bring them aside and be like, okay, you are now part-time delight manager, which means once a month or once every 2 weeks, we're gonna sit down and you're gonna bring ideas on how we could do crazy things for our community. And you're gonna bring them, and you're gonna bring me conservative ideas on budget, and you're gonna bring me crazy asks, and we're gonna find something in the middle. I think that just starting that conversation, it takes a while, but if you invest in it a little bit, you start to see the return. The third thing that we do is we have, as part of our Tiny Pulse that goes out to the company, we have a separate email alias that you can send into, which is like, here's what I don't think we're doing well enough for our customers and community, and we're just data mining those ideas all week on how we can do something special. So like someone had mentioned, we have a number of professionals that are third and fourth generations of their families, and they're constantly talking about the pride of that and what can we do for them, and we're like, wouldn't it be great if we could feature their families in a way, like the pride of the company, and actually like do local press for them with our local team for no benefit of Porch really, other than like we're facilitating that. And so we're actually going to kick off like a local press effort to feature those sort of legacy companies. And that just came from one of our sales guys who was like, I hear all day about these men and women that love their family construction businesses, and how can we better feature them? So I think that getting the ideas from the teams that are talking to the customers, setting up some sort of infrastructure for dropping off swag and kind of external brandable things like that, and then really just trying to think who is going to own that and who's going to champion it.
If I could just add something that Eric and I try to consciously do at Stone Temple with our employees is based on the research. There's a lot of research now that shows that amazingly people are very highly motivated as workers by feeling that they just accomplished something in their work. So it's good to have all kinds of other events and things going on in the swag, and I believe in that, and it's great. But one of the best things you can do is very simple, is if you're in any kind of position to be influencing in your company and to be communicating, to be consciously looking for every opportunity to celebrate an accomplishment by an employee. And especially for us, we're developing the largest and fastest growing part of our company is what we call our junior marketing associates. These are usually young people right out of college or coming in. Some of them are really eager to learn the business. They're coming up with small but brilliant ideas. And when we see those, we take note of them and we broadcast them. We celebrate them. We throw parties about them. This is just highly motivating to them to be recognized, even for small accomplishments or great ideas, even if the idea doesn't get used sometimes, just that you had this idea, that you expressed this creativity, and make sure everybody in the company knows about it. Very simple thing, very inexpensive thing you can do, but highly, highly effective in building that culture.
I think that's great. I got a reminder that pops up like 100 recognition ideas for employees. It pops up every week on my screen, so I always am thinking. Any other questions? Yes.
I have one. I think it's great. You talk about investing up front, and you talk about not having the horse behind the cart. But that's great for startup businesses and young businesses. I work for a company that's been around for 45 years. Our identity has shifted multiple times and is in the process of shifting right now. And do we stop everything? Do we stop our social media? I mean,
Well, I think that, I was using a bit of hyperbole when I say, stop, don't send another tweet until you've done all this. Obviously, you got things in motion. No, don't stop. Keep going. But what I hope is that even in older companies, and we've done this with a number of very well-established companies that seem kind of set in their ways, are doing things in a certain way. The hardest part from our standpoint as an agency is finding somebody to champion it internally, somebody that gets it and is inspired, like, we need to do this. Once we've got that person, then we just fan their flames to do it. But these are exercises that can be done while you're in motion, and do what you can. But it's continually amazing to us how many Fortune 500 or bigger brands that we work with, we come across, that couldn't tell you, if you sat down with the top executives in the company, what's your brand value statement. They'll muddle through something, but they don't even have really that formulated. So I think what I'm saying is that this is something that you can do, and then as you do it, the benefits of that begin to flow downstream and will eventually prove. My main point that I'm trying to make is, don't start with, our social media isn't working, we need to do better social media. That's not the answer. There's something much further down the stream, could be in the company culture, could be in just knowing your identity, knowing your buyers, all those things, that any company at any stage can back up and begin to do that homework and get those things incorporated.
I think that's a very good answer. I don't, so it's funny because when you were starting to ask the question, I thought it was going to be the opposite. I thought you were going to be like, so you want to do upfront costs, but I'm a really small company and I don't have any budget. And I was like, ready for it. But it went the other way. So I think the only thing that comes to mind for me, so when I was at Big Door, we did work with Starbucks. We worked with a couple other very large, we were an enterprise software company. And something we talked a lot about was evolving with your community. So almost using it as a testing playground as well. Like, you can't stop production, things gotta move, there's things in play, but can you actually carve out 10 to 15% of either content strategy, social management strategy, or even, surveying, email comm, feedback channels, and say to yourself, let's help use them to bring in the data to make the better decisions while those parallel work streams are happening. So I don't know, I think his is a much more actionable answer, but it does seem to me that there's a unique opportunity there as well, because you do have a tribe that has been following you along, and the pulse signs, hopefully the tenants, the foundations are still there, and you're just shifting and moving and helping it grow into a new chapter. So
I think just one more thing on this is that even if you're an older established firm or you've been doing social media for a long time, this is something, the things we've been talking about, you've got to be thinking about, simply because I'm seeing, I think a lot of you probably are too, I'm feeling and sensing out there that we've come to a place in the curve of social media where it's beginning to be challenged, it's beginning to be questioned, especially again if you're in a larger organization. There are people in the organization that are saying, like, why are we doing this? What is it really getting us? What's the benefit of it? Those questions are starting to ask. The honeymoon period of social media marketing is over. And so if you're not asking these questions, if you're not willing to go back and say, we need to now do some rebuilding, do some retrenching, filling in, backfilling, and getting in the things that are going to make us smarter and better, not only is that going to make you better as a marketer, but it's also going to show the people in your organization that you are maturing. You're not just the, she's the person that tweets anymore, but you are a real marketer, and you're building in place real marketing value that gives a reason for that social media to be there. So it's something that it's not just a nice thing to do. It's not just be more effective with your customers, which you should be wanting to do. But I think if this is your job, if this is your career area, it's something you've got to be paying attention to. We've got to grow up. We've got to become more mature. We've got to become real marketers as social media marketers.
And I was going to say, I think one of the things Mark talked about earlier was when you're setting up, understanding kind of who you are and looking at buyer personas. When you know your buyer personas and you have the psychographic, demographic information, you can better then target them on social media. So it just kind of flows right into that. Any other questions? Yes?
Well, since you're all prepared to answer the I'm a small company with no
List.
So true. Yep. I didn't say I had a good answer. No. I mean, so I've only done startups, right? I mean, every startup has gotten bigger with each time, but I think that budget is always the question. And now, I don't know about you guys, but I do spend the majority of my day, like, I convince the CEO now when I come in as getting hired, right? Like, thankfully, I've gotten to that point where I'm like, this is my philosophy, and this is what I believe, and it has to be part of what you think. But then I spend the most of my time every week convincing the new person that's hired that now heads up product, and the new person that's hired that now heads up account management, and the new person that's hired on onboarding, and sitting down and being like, this is a philosophy, it's an upfront investment. Like, what I do believe to be the case is that the first 3 months of everything I did with community and social, I did through interns and me, and my illustration through Canva, and my writing, and free contributors and people in the industry that I knew I could call on that could pull in content. So everything was free for me to seed, and then everything was a discussion of ramp from there on out. And and that's what I mean when I say invest in the data early, because GA has the data we need early. Then you graduate into some other analytics tools you need to do in parallel. But I could then point to say, for every community person I get, this is what I'm going to drive to our business. I know what our business values are. It's leads to pros, it's PHRs downloaded, it's MUUs. Those are our 3 monetizable functions. And so I found my way to show that I could increase that and what that would do for the business's bottom line. And then I said, but that's not why we're going to build it. We're going to build it because we want to be a household brand. And the proxy down the road will be the success for the business. And I just had this conversation with my CEO yesterday, very animated, where we were talking about our community product roadmap. And he goes, yeah, let's build the features we need. Q2's the quarter for it, so that we can start to see that business value. And I go, no, we're going to build the product roadmap we need to build the community that I want, that I think this brand needs. And in a year, we'll talk about the revenue it brings out, because there are 2 different roadmaps when you build them. So I think there's a lot of upfront dialoguing and a lot of upfront manifesting, but I think that it really comes down to knowing the business data points that I'm going to have to increase to get it funded. And so that is very much a startup mentality and also a big company mentality, but hopefully that helps a little bit. I've got some models if anyone wants me to tweet them out.
Yes.
I will. Okay. I will do that.
I was going to say, I have just one thing is, so we work with a lot of small, medium businesses. Some of those are contractors, and for years we've been looking at their different marketing channels, and Angie's List has done pretty well for them. We've often said, yeah, keep that, and while we're telling them to cut other things, and so when we found out about Porch probably about 6 months ago, we said, yeah, you need to test it and go in there and figure it out, and so we were right away. So it's kind of cool that we're again coming back together and talking now. But I was like, wow, their marketing's really good. Everything's looking great. Yeah, so it was really awesome. But what kind of so I'm selling a contractor, I'm telling them why they should go with Porch over Angie's List, or just in any case, what would I tell them? I guess what's the
Oh,
you get Joanna Lord.
I was like, you want me to be a salesperson?
Yeah.
So the reason that we believe we're better than our competitors is because we're approaching it through data versus lead generation. So our data helps match you with the perfect lead for your business, and there's a lot of things that go into that I'm not going to bore you guys with, but it is in fact true. So we have a really strong lead gen machine. That was what we invested in first, but then we layered in this data that no one else has. So I can actually match a contractor with a lead that, like, their neighbors' houses similar to them, projects they've done in the past that they've been highly rated on. So they're getting a better lead, which will hopefully grow their business. I also like to think that, and this is the inbound Mazur in me, but this evolution of this audience, we're in it with them because they're becoming tech savvy. And there's a lot of questions, and they're getting asked for money from pretty much everyone. So I'm looking at it and saying, how can I help them grow their business in a non-threatening way, bring them into the tech world? And so that's where the blog just launched, and that's where the content's going to come in and the events that are going to come in. And we're going to facilitate partnerships for them in the technologies that they can do free trials and not get caught up in concerns. So, like, I believe in that as the long pole, but that's how we're doing it a little bit differently.
awesome thing?
Any other questions?